Good morning to all. I think we'll wait for around 5 more minutes because I see participants joining in, and then we can start. Good morning, Mehta sir. Good morning, Fauzan.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Tushar.
So yeah, we'll wait for around 5 more minutes, and then we can probably start.
Correct.
Okay, I think we can start. I see participants coming in. So, a very good
Let's get
morning
going.
to all. Yes. Very good morning to all, and welcome to the eighth webinar in the Every Friday webinar series, a platform for young minds to express their ideas to all. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal, and I am a teaching faculty at the Periyar School of Architecture, New Delhi. Today's webinar will be about optical illusions in architecture, presented by architect Fauzan Mirza. So before introducing the speaker for today, I would like to honor architect Premendra Raj Mehta, who is the mentor of Periyar School of Architecture along with his partner. He is also the former president of the Council of Architecture. We also have with us architect Kamal Raj, who is the head of department at the Periyar School of Architecture. I welcome both of you, sir. Mehta sir, if you could just speak a few words and motivate us for today. Sir.
Some connectivity problem.
Yes, sir. You're here, sir. Are you audible as well?
Yeah, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome to this eighth discussion on ideas, new ideas, and very warm welcome to Mirza, who have prepared a presentation on optical illusion today. We at Periyar School encourage generation of new ideas, and this particular series run by Tushar focuses on ideas which a young mind would have and would like to share with the fellow professionals, students. And these could be on issues which concern you, which you think is our future, which you think needs attention, which you think have been ignored but well understood otherwise. So we welcome you all to share your ideas, tell your friends, tell your colleagues that this is a forum where you can share your thought, share a solution to a problem which you think needs urgent attention, or it has a very simple solution, but we are going round and round. So come and do that. Share your idea here. We at Periyar School would like to carry that forward to the concerned authorities. Discuss it with
Sir,
them
yeah.
and make a formal presentation. Also, along with this, if you think there is a summer school program, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, deliberate on it, make our and then to the concerned authorities, and in due course influence decision making based on some of these ideas. So very warm welcome once again to all the participants and particularly Mirza, who has made a preparation and who would be sharing his idea today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Kamal sir, if you could also say a few words for us.
Thank you very much. So,
Tushar?
Yes, sir. Mehta sir, I think you got disconnected again. Okay. Kamal sir, I think in the meantime you can go ahead. I'll speak to.
okay. So, welcome everybody. So,
Yeah,
throughout,
I'll come on phone. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I mean, architecture and art are inseparable throughout the history. So, it's only some time back that we have been considering them separately. Even in if you see ITO government buildings also, there were beautiful murals and all, and sculptures also. So I think it's being revived now. Architects are now getting aware that art is an important part of the, gives life to the spaces. So let's hear experiences of young people on that. So I welcome Mr. Mirza to start his lecture.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So now I will introduce our speaker for today's webinar, architect Fauzan Mirza. So Mohammad Fauzan Mirza is an architect and artist who completed his BArch from the University School of Architecture and Planning, GGS IPU. He has worked with Anagram Architects on a variety of projects ranging from residential to institutional of socio-cultural significance. As an artist, he does large-size oil paintings which narrate ideas using the amalgamation of realism and abstraction, and his works have been exhibited at significant events and places in New Delhi. So today he will be talking about optical illusions in architectural compositions through art. I request Fauzan, if you could just please switch on your camera first, and you could also begin your presentation. I request all of the other participants to kindly keep themselves muted and the videos off for the duration of the presentation for smoother streaming. Thank you. Yeah, Fauzan, you can start.
Yes, Tushar. Just let me know if my video is visible.
Yes, you're visible.
Okay. Hi everyone, and thanks Kamal sir and Mehta sir for the wise words about art and architecture, and thank you Tushar for having me. So I think I'll start with the presentation, and along with that, we will be exploring more about the mix of art and architecture and its importance. So let me just share my screen. Let me know if it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so yeah. So one of the reasons that I am speaking about this topic is because I have been into painting and artistic stuff for a long time, and I also completed my architecture and have been practicing for 2 years. So the mix of art and architecture, as Kamal sir also said, it's inseparable, and you can really find every element of art in every element of architecture in various forms, and you just have to have the right eye to see it and to see the impact of art, which is there on architecture in every place you see. So, starting with basically, I'll give an overview of the presentation. Basically, what all I will be talking about, and what are the some of the important topics that will take us through the importance of optical illusion and how art comes into optical illusion. And it's not going to be only about art; it's going to be about various practices, various methods, which can help us to create optical illusion. And starting with, we will be seeing what is the optical illusion exactly, and what its purpose is, and how it has been used in history, and some of the types of optical illusions that are being used in architecture and have been used since a lot of time. And then we will be moving on to some of the contemporary applications of this optical illusion that are being practiced in the current time, and we will see how it can have some strong impact in a minimal way. So optical illusion, as the word suggests, so it's something that deceives the eye by appearing to be the other than it is. So something that you are seeing, it is exactly not what it is right now, and it is because of the eye, the viewpoint, or the environment that you are in, and that's why, because of those factors, you are able to see something in a certain way, and which is not exactly the truth. Now, what does optical illusion do, and what effects does it create? So it can create effects of perceptual illusions, ambiguities, and contradictions. And these words might sound to be negative in the context, but the thing is that optical illusion can be used for treating a lot of things and making spaces a little better, and the ambiguities and the contradictions can be used positively. Now, optical illusions, as I mentioned, have been used since a long, long time, with like from architects and artists and all the creative minds that were there. So it has been in existence through during the Renaissance period. It was like at its peak, and it was very noticed at that time. Although it was started long, long time before that, in the time of 4th century, 5th century BC as well, and which we'll be noticing in the next slides. So I've jotted down kind of a timeline for like different explanations and definitions given by different artists, architects, and notable personalities who were involved in architecture, and have made a significant impact on the history of architecture. So, like in the 5th century BC, Epiphanes just mentioned that it's the sensory organs that make us deceive what we see. While then in the same century, another person, Protagoras, said that it's the environment or the context that is fooling us to see what we are seeing and what it's not in reality. And then further on, like different explanations came upon by Plato, by Aristotle, and basically it was kind of a mix of all the things that can describe optical illusion in reality. It's all about our environment, how we perceive things. It's about our senses. It's about our vision, and a lot of factors such as the viewpoint and what you are exactly seeing, and what the object, and its background basically against which the object is appearing to be. So a lot of things, a lot of factors are there which can deceive us, deceive our eyes for what we are seeing. Now, so I've jotted down basically 4 broad categories of optical illusions, and since we are talking about architecture, so their applications in architecture, how it has been used during the history throughout the time, and in different various ways to solve various things and have different impacts, like really different impacts in each category I mentioned. So basically 4 types are the correctional illusion, and the other one is the scale, illusion of scale. The other is weightlessness, and the fourth one will be the plane dematerialization. So let's go through each one of them one by one, and we will be seeing some of the examples which are existing in the world right now, and are some of the most impactful examples of optical illusions. So starting with correctional illusion. So now correctional illusion, as the name suggests, is like correcting something or making something appear to be more perfect, or if it's an object there in the space, and you don't see it properly, or you don't see it in its perfect form as you wanted it to be, then correctional illusion was used very much. And the simple way of doing it was just to analyze what you want to show the viewer. So that involves analyzing the viewpoints of your building. If you're building an architectural monument or a building, or a small scale or large scale building, it doesn't matter the scale of the building, but according to the scale, it depends how you treat illusion. So it was necessary to view the viewpoints and mark the correct angles and everything, and then alter your structure a little, or the orientation of the structure, alignment of the structures, to make it look perfect from the human eye view. So one of the most famous examples is the Taj Mahal, and so this building has a lot of optical illusions, and that's why I'll be covering this in the other subtopics as well. So currently, when we talk about correctional illusion, So if you, like many of you might know about this illusion in general, that the minarets of the Taj Mahal are inclined outwards, and that was done intentionally because like one of the reasons was there to, like, if there is an earthquake they could fall apart and not on the Taj Mahal, but that's one functional thing. But what the optical illusion that is being created is that from the viewpoint, the minarets, if you stand from the viewpoint in the front of the Taj Mahal, the gate through you enter, so the minarets appear to be converging inwards, and that's why these minarets, so like bending inwards is not a perfect form that the creator wanted people to see it. He wanted to, like, look at it in a parallel projection kind of situation and appear it to be completely straight upwards, and that's why these minarets, when it is inclined outwards, so that's when you view from the human eye level, they appear to be perfectly straight. So this is one very small example of how you can, just create optical illusion by orientation or alignment of certain structural elements. Another very, very famous example, and a very old one, probably the first one where optical illusions might have been used that has been documented in history, is the Parthenon, Greece. And if I compare it to the Taj Mahal, so the scale of this building is very small as compared to Taj Mahal. It's about like 14 meters of height, while Taj Mahal is almost triple of it, triple. So basically, the rules of optical illusion, as I mentioned earlier, change as you change the scale of the building, the viewpoints, and the context of the building. So now in this case, whenever you are very close to an object and which has a significant height in front of you, the columns, or like suppose you are standing in the middle of the Parthenon and if it was built like the figure A, you would have been seeing the columns or the structure to be like figure B, like diverging outwards. And that was when the viewpoint is very close to the Parthenon, and that's what the viewpoint was decided that it will be very close. So that's how you solve considering the viewpoints. So when you stand there, if it was made perfectly straight, it would have been appeared to be like figure B. And so what they did was, in reality, if you see the figure C, the Parthenon is made like that. It's basically the base also of the Parthenon is not a flat surface. It's a curve. It's a round surface, and the columns, all the columns are inclined inwards. And like few of the reasons were to give structural support also, but that helps to create the illusion that the columns are perfectly straight when they are viewed from the front and when the viewer is standing in the front of the building. And that's how the rules change from the Taj Mahal to this building because of the scale and because of the viewpoint. So another important and small feature in this one is that the ability of the human eye to see things like can make the tall thing appear to be slender in the center and at the top. So one very small intervention, very minute intervention that the people did were to bulge out the column in the center so that when it is appeared from the human eye level, it looks perfectly straight. And it has been documented very well, and these remarkable things were observed and traced back, and these illusions, optical illusion techniques were found out, which were extensively used in this building. Now moving on to illusion of scale. Illusion of scale is basically creating an illusion of even a large space, or making a space look smaller than it is. And it was mostly used for creating sense of grandness and openness and a large area entrance without actually making a large entrance. So one of the most common example again, So as I said, I will be using the Taj example quite a lot in every aspect, basically, because it has some remarkable optical illusions. So the people who have visited Taj, so there is a gate in front of the Taj, so through which you enter, and then you enter the main complex, the gardens, to view the Taj Mahal. So when you're standing at the front of the gate, the Taj Mahal appears to be like what it is on the left side. And if I say that when you move away from a building, generally what happens, the object or the building appears to be smaller. So the farther the distance between the object and the human, the smaller it will look. But in this case, what's happening is that as you move backwards, as you take your steps backwards, in the middle of the center image shows that the Taj Mahal, appears to be bigger in size. And when you further move away, the Taj further expands in size. So basically, the trick is that it is the view that you're seeing. It is very, relevant because it's relative to the gate and the Taj that you are seeing. So the opening remain constant, and your movement creates this illusion that the Taj is appearing to be bigger, although it's because of the relative view that you're seeing. Because of the opening of the gate is constant, and you're just moving front and back. So that's the point. Like, using minimal interventions and some putting in some mind in these things to make a space a little better, a little interesting, even though it is not required to solve any purpose or solve any function aspect. But it was an important element at that time or today as well, because it creates a sense of interest and makes the space very engaging wherever you visit and to whoever is visiting. And I think that's the beauty of architecture and art. So moving on to the next one, illusion of weightlessness. So weightlessness, basically, in earlier times, they used to be a large span structures, a lot of them, and huge roofs, churches, monuments, and other buildings like that. So all of them had massive structures, and the challenge was that the massive structures would require a massive amount of columns, buttresses, beams, and stuff. And at that time, in the history, steel was not used very much, and most of the things were used done by dry construction, which was using stone masonry, brick masonry. So what was the solution at that time? Because if you are doing some construction without steel, let's say a stone wall or stone cladding. So these huge structure required huge support members, huge columns, and huge buttresses. So illusion of weightlessness comes into play to treat the interiors of a space. So taking example of the very famous Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. So the roof that you see from inside, it appears to be very light in nature, very well lit, and you don't see any of the structural members. You just are seeing, domes and arches and squinches everywhere. And as compared to the structure below, the roof appears to be very light, and although it is not. So if you see on the right side in the isometric diagram, it is shown that the arches, the buttresses, all the columns that are being used as the main structure of this building. However, you don't see it inside. That's because all the structure and all the structural elements, beams, columns, were placed on the outside surface and are not projecting inside. And that's how there is no sense of visibility of the main structure inside the building, which helps to create a sense of lightness and makes the roof also appear to be lighter. And of course, there are certain more elements which are the choice of colors and the puncturing of the roofs at various spaces. And obviously, after figuring out the structural loads, whatever is not non-structural element, you can create and play with the openings of the building. And I think a lot of these small elements have been used in here to make the roof appear to be very light. And similarly, the other example is the cathedral at Coutances and in France. So again, huge, massive heights and vaulted ceilings, ribbed ceilings. So like inside of the building, it's just used for decoration and sleek, slender elements, and all the structural members were there on the outside of the building, which when you see from the outside or from the road, they don't appear to be that big because you're seeing it in context of a lot of urban buildings and surrounding areas. But when you are inside of a building, a heavy element might be very impactful or might feel very heavy to the human eye, and that was the thing, that the heavy structural members were not projected inside in most of the buildings which had these massive halls and roofs. Now, moving on to the very interesting part or category of optical illusion is the plane dematerialization. And this is, I would say, one of the simplest techniques in today's contemporary time as well, and it's being used a lot to create optical illusions. And it is through the composition of 2D patterns and artworks and lines and geometries to create very interesting optical illusions. And I would like to tell you guys about optical art, which is also came to be known as OP art or op art. So that started in the mid 20th century, and it was all based on creating optical illusion just through art. And these Victor, Bridget, Richard, Larry, Jeffrey were some of the founders of OP art movement, the person who started it. And basically how they started was they had the first public exhibition to make this concept public, and for the people to be more aware about these things, how this art and 2D patterns can create a sense of movement, create a sense of illusion, and that was their intention. So what they did was, it was the whole exhibition was done to make artworks only using these simple geometries. So like curves, lines, grids, and you can see like what each picture is depicting. It's a plain surface, but the curves and the lines, the way of using them has made a lot of difference for us to see what we see, and can create a sense of movement as well. And it really depends on the choice of colors and the movement of the lines, choice of curves, and it all depends how from where you are seeing the space. And that's how like a lot of mind is involved to create such things. And from the human eye level, different parameters are considered to make this happen. So sharing my personal experience, so this like what got me interested into optical illusion was again the Taj Mahal when I visited back in 2016, I think, 2015. So basically what happened was when I viewed Taj Mahal from a certain distance, with each step we were discovering something in the geometries, in the architecture of it, because I was already in architecture school, so I was observing every bit of it. And this small thing, very interesting thing that I observed was this minaret that you see, this element. So this appears to be having six faceted surfaces right now, with a zigzag pattern, black pattern. But in actuality, it is not like that. So when we move closer to this thing, it is like this. So basically the six surfaces you are seeing, they were actually three surfaces. So this one surface were appearing to be two, just because of this simple pattern that was applied to this element. And that's when I realized that how these simple techniques, could create a huge impact. Like when you move really close to it, then only you will be able to see this thing. Otherwise, it appears to be having six faces. So that inspired me, and that was a small experiment that we experimented in our arts and graphics studio while I was in college in my second year. So very, very small example to see if it really works. Like I was very fascinated by that and wanted to try myself at a small scale. So basically, we painted this beam structure that was there in our classroom in three shades of gray, and those shades of gray made the space look, having different surfaces, different shadows and shades, and the lines that you see, the black ones. And so those help to bind the whole thing together to, accentuate the feeling of three surfaces that are present there, although it is one only. So this is one of the experiences of mine that I experimented with after experiencing optical illusion in reality. Now, moving on to some contemporary expressions, because we have been seeing that this optical illusion has been used throughout the history in monumental spaces and other significant buildings. But the question comes, or a question may arise, that is it being used in the contemporary time, in the contemporary architecture, or has the definition of optical illusion changed, or has the way in we create optical illusion, are they changing, and are we discovering more things on this optical illusion creation of it in maybe different forms, and not just through patterns, but and not just through scale, but maybe through materials, since there are a lot of materials being discovered, manufactured, and there might be a lot of factors, lot of new factors that can be used for optical illusions because of the development. And I would like to uh, run you through some of the examples. So this is one residence in the Santorini, and it was done. So basically, you see, it's a plain field, and whenever we are creating a building anywhere in an open field, or anywhere in the city, we are actually occupying the footprint, and the land, the empty lands, we don't see it anymore. And basically what happened is that the footprint is going to be covered if there is a building being built. So what can be a small solution or small intervention to make the space appear more open and not make the building sitting so heavily on the ground? So that was the idea behind this building from the architect. So that's why they've used on the ground floor, they've used this reflective material. And so although you see it that there is a wall or there is a structure, there is some reflective material, but faintly you also see that it's reflecting all of the landscape, which is kind of helping the whole landscape to be appear as one holistic one, and the building is getting merged with the landscape properly. So, I mean, now this building is being built in an open field, and so you might be thinking, like, if it was built in a city or a congested place, then it would not have been applicable. This practice would have been creating more disturbance, reflecting the other contextual buildings. So the point is that optical illusion is not a one solution, or you know it doesn't have one solution for a particular thing. You can experiment it according to the space, and it really matters in small things. Even if you change the viewpoints or the space or the context or the type of building, there will be a complete different solution to create some optical illusion. So this one works in this area, and it might not work in the other area. And this is one of the other example, similar example of using a reflective surface below the building to make it appear as as if it's floating in the open field and not occupying a lot of rigidly occupying the land. So it sits very organically, blends with the background, and creates a sense of lightness on the ground, basically. Now, moving on to optical illusion through patterns, how patterns can help create optical illusions or a sense of movement, if you see. So basically, this is a swimming pool which is a perfect cuboidal shape, and all the faces and lines and edges are perfectly straight. Although these patterns that are being used in this swimming pool are making it appear as if it is moving and as if it's organic in nature, and it seamlessly tries to blend with the landscape, like the contoured side of the thing of the swimming pool that is being mimicked in the swimming pool area. So it creates like does different things to the viewer, like it creates a sense of movement as well, and it blends with the context as well. Another simple example of an interior space now. So whenever you are in some interior space, some places might be very congested, might have a lot of edges, ceiling to wall joints, wall to floor joints. A lot of edges are there. So basically, this example is a very exaggerated example of artist Peter, who plays with these kind of curves and elements to sense of creative movement sense. And what's happening is that it's a cuboidal room again, but because of the use of the curves in a manner, um, the edges of the room, or the perfect shape of the room that was there originally, that is not visible exactly. So this creates a sense of movement, a sense of flow, and blends out the edges, the sharp corners of the building or the interiors. So this is one very exaggerated example which was displayed in a gallery in Paris to tell the public or to spread awareness about optical illusion and how simple curves and simple lines can generate a different feeling altogether. Another urban example, I would say, so it's in Germany, and Peter Paints were the artists who did this. So it's an urban street. Basically, you see, shops and houses, one or two story residences around the street, and this is a point. This is a corner building where two roads meet each other. But in actuality, you don't see any corner when you see the building. So that's a small purpose they were trying to solve. Like all the windows and openings are composed in such a manner. All the elements that are made artistically by paint are used in such a manner that the edge of the building, the corner of the building, doesn't appear to be very sharp or very outstanding, or occupying a significant view of the viewer who is walking on the street. And it's like binding both of the surfaces, both the adjacent surfaces of the building together to create an interesting form. This is another example by Peter Paints only. So another like completely flat surface turned into some interesting volumes, depths, and giving character to the space instead of just being a plain dead wall. Another example of an industrial looking thing that I wanted to give. So basically, it's kind of a subway station or bus station, which is there, done in completely steel fabricated structure, a lot of trusses, steel columns and members which are going through. And this artist, Felice Varini, wanted to create a sense of smoothness inside to contradict the rigidness of the structure. And basically, he painted all the elements, the roof, the column, the trusses, and all the rafters and purlins of the thing in such a way that it forms, like from this viewpoint, it forms perfect concentric circles and gives you a sense of being in a tunnel kind of situation. Although a large tunnel, not feeling claustrophobic, and also smoothens out the rigidness of the structure, which is already there because of the lot of steel members that are used and the trusses that are used. Although they have their own beauty, but this was one experiment to see how you can like smoothen out certain elements if it's very rigid in nature. Another example of the Louvre in Paris. So this was painted for some celebration of an anniversary of this museum. And, for this thing, again, the viewpoint was considered first. And according to that, um, the viewpoint was exactly the entrance through which the function was planned. So basically, through that viewpoint, the whole artwork was created in such a way that it makes the Louvre appear more grand and more monumental, we can say. So as you see on the left side, it creates a lot of depth effect and makes the illusion of scale also somehow. It appears to be very grand in nature. And that's how, like, through small interventions, people are making a difference in how we perceive spaces, as in this example also. It's a very small example, can be tried in any small space also just to make it a bit more interesting. So this American artist, Akash Nihalani, he kind of makes these small, 2D things, 2D installations in small galleries, in small spaces, just to make the space more interactive. And I think making a space more interactive, again, it's not a functional requirement, but art is there since time immemorial, and it has been used to adding character to a space, adding some quality to the space. Otherwise, the space would be just a plain dead thing. And these small interventions can make a huge difference in various different ways that we have seen till now. And I would like to, come to the conclusion of the presentation by giving you a gist of what all we have covered and how optical illusion can be used in the future or is used in the present times, and what can we take away from the past and how it can be impactful. So basically, we saw that it can be used to treat a plane surface and make it more interesting using volumes and depths. And another thing we saw that it can be used to treat the edges of a building or in the interiors of a building. And moving on, like, creating a sense of larger space or a smaller space, which we covered in the illusion of scale category. And then obviously, like the optical art was used to make the space aesthetically look better, or it can be used to, smoothen off the edges, harsh edges that are there in some spaces. And yeah, so basically all of this is being done without actually creating a surface. So if I talk about the treatment of plane surface by creating depths and volumes, so I'm not structurally creating any depth or volume on the surface. So by just simple 2D art, it is perceived as if it has some character, and you don't necessarily have to force any volume, any structure out and in of the plane surface. So if it's there, if it's a plane surface, if it exists somewhere, obviously it can be made a little better through the intervention of art. And I think that's the beauty of art and architecture, and that's how art becomes a very crucial and very effective form of architecture. And so does optical illusion in creating small things, making spaces a little more exciting, little more better for the user to perceive, apart from the functional aspects. And yeah, because in the urban scale, in the urban context, if you're talking about walking around the streets and stuff, so basically you're not actually using the building directly, which is there in your context, but they can be treated in such a way that can make your walk interesting, or you know have a sense of character to the space, to the urban space. And yeah, so I would like to end the PPT in that note about optical illusions and its impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Fauzan, for the talk. It was quite interesting. So participants can now ask questions. You can also post your questions in the discussion group. If you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself and go ahead. In the meantime, while we wait for some questions, I would like to introduce architect Prakriti Mehta, who is the assistant professor at NMIMS University, Mumbai. She holds a Master of Urban Designer from SPA, post a BAs from the Amity University, Noida. She is part of a group of eminent architects invited by the UP government to witness redevelopment of the Baba Vishwanath temple in Varanasi. Ma'am, if you could just share your views and comment on the topic.
Thank you, Fauzan. Indeed, it was a wonderful presentation. And considering, I feel that the presentation was pretty neat, as it could be, very clear. Interestingly, you spoke about how architecture in the historical perspective as well as the contemporary perspective, and you discussed through certain very peculiar examples, but very beautifully talking about, like the Taj Mahal. You spoke about how it is witnessed by all of us as architects or aspiring architects who may be joining us today, that how visual perspectives are created and how an experience is created out of that visual perception of space. And likewise, you spoke about the Parthenon as well. Or you spoke about the Hagia Sophia, which underwent several changes in its function, in its activity, but and politically also it underwent a lot of changes. But one thing that remained constant, and you spoke about that, was the elements in architecture, which were designed with a certain perspective, a certain intent, which was beautifully captured by you. And the qualitative notion of weightlessness is something that particularly intrigued me. Or you spoke about the abbeys in the UK. And at the same time, while we are talking about the monumental nature of optical illusion, we also spoke about the smallest bit, which is on art, and how in interiors as well, certain art forms and how geometries could specifically make illusions visible to the eye. And further on, some wonderful contemporary examples on how there could be engagement, interaction, an experience that's created through movement or speed with the naked eye, that's heightened through design itself, with the principles of design that you spoke about. I think on the whole, it was a wonderful presentation. Like I really want to appreciate the fact that it was interesting to see the macro and the micro scale of optical illusion that could be created through geometries. If Tushar may allow, can I ask a question as well? I have two questions.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. One is, you spoke about utility in geometry, which is creating the kind of optical illusion that you spoke about. Does non-Euclidean geometry also play a role in architecture right now, or is it being practiced anywhere to create illusions of certain kind?
Just to clear the question, like you are asking about whether if it's used in the current context, current practices.
So geometric patterns is something that you have explained through your presentation. But there's also something which is non-geometrical in nature, right? So that's called the non-Euclidean geometry. So are they also used currently in either art or architecture?
So I think I'll give a very small scale example of like when I've been through like doing residential projects, suppose. So when we want to add a certain sense of smoothness to a space. So suppose you have this ceiling and wall joints, and which is quite creating a quite rectilinear room, or you have like quite rigid shapes. So creating some elements, if like in one project I created this rib structure which has these arched offset kind of things in the corners of the wall and edge joint, and the series of that basically like even though you know that it's not a perfectly round space or a smooth surface, but adding those small elements gives you the sense of smoothness or a flow in the space.
I see. I
And
see.
one another very basic example like which just crossed my mind while making this presentation, and it's not exactly optical illusion, but a sense of example of I would say art, or how we use colors and shapes. So basically, the the use of light colors on the ceiling that is there. So that I can count as a part of the art or the aesthetic mind that you're putting. So most of the time, it is painted white. So that's because to make it look lighter and make the space look larger. So that's one very, very small thing. And I think even though architects and artists are doing a lot of things in the projects, some optical illusions might be happening accidentally, which are not, really documented and put forward. And these were documented things like in the Taj and the Parthenon, because like there are very significant buildings and documented very well. And that's how optical illusions were discovered in those buildings. And I think now also people can put like little bit of mind is required to make the space a little better without actually intervention of some structure or something in reality. So I think like we can definitely give some time thinking about the aesthetics of a place just to make it a little better through optical illusions, through perception of human eye. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think the other question that I had in mind, looking at your presentation, was also the fact that at one end we're talking about monumental architecture, if I may call it so, where you did mention that it is much more by accident that they've identified optical illusion as a concept. And at the other end, we're talking about art, which is, you spoke about 2D surfaces which were creating that kind of an illusion. Now, in architecture, is it possible to bring back, or are there any examples in which the third dimension is also used for optical illusion, not just planar surface applications of art or just installations, but even architectural elements like the way you spoke about the buttresses or you spoke about the towers at the Taj Mahal, which were three-dimensional surfaces, but optically seen or visualized in the second dimension. But can it be also worked out in the third dimension as well? In architecture, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, moving away from the geometrical application of it, right? So basically the things we talked about, the inclination of the structure or the orientation of the buildings, that I think can be used anywhere in any building, because when you are outside the building or inside the building, there is some space that you are seeing or visualizing or experiencing, and you might want to show some element in a certain way to the outside, to the people outside, or to the people inside. You might want to make a space look bigger. You want to make some window smaller or taller, and you don't have really the height that can be used to make the window taller. So So there in those things, in those restrictions that we have of height and space wherever we have it. So I think in those spaces, this optical illusion is an effective method to accentuate what you are wanting to show or wanting to experience. And it can be applied to anywhere from like small residential buildings to large institutional buildings. And mostly like these examples that were given were of monumental buildings because that were created for the people, for the public to see, and these elements of visual perception was considered very important. But as you come to the private spaces, which are the residential and not so public spaces, there it is kind of not considered or not given attention to, for the simple reason that it has to be just functional and the building just has to run. And but I still think that if you are occupying a certain urban space, making your building or something, then you can give something to the context also, like because you are now a part of the context. You're not just living inside it, and the building is affecting the outside also, the urban context as well. So I think in like it will be an effective way, effective solution, or a small intervention could bring a positive impact on the surroundings as well and make a space a little better for the people outside.
Thank you so much. I like the fact that you still see a lot of scope in the domain still to be explored. Great. Thank you, Tushar. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the questions as well. So, if anybody, because we are already a bit short on time, so yeah, if anybody else has any questions, then please go ahead and ask.
I have a question.
Yes, Rohan.
So it was a lovely presentation. Learned a lot. So I wanted to ask you, like you talked about like Renaissance, and which in itself was like a sort of a thing aimed for perfection. But now, like as we have moved forward, like Renaissance, we also connected to the paintings and everything. And as we move forward, like there have been many movements which were like aimed at imperfections, and also like connecting to optical illusions, there have been like pointillism and everything. So how do you think we can learn from these kind of disciplines and connect them to architecture, like use that kind of optical illusion like pointillism in the modern architecture, like to deviate away from Renaissance and those kind of things?
Thanks, Rohan, for the question. So yeah, as you said that earlier perfection was the thing and most of the things were symmetrically built, and now in this today's context, architects are exploring different dimensions, different angles, and non-linear stuff. So again, the concept remains the same, the basic concept, because earlier they were trying to solve the concept or visual aspect of symmetry, and now the architects, if they are making these non-rectilinear or non-symmetrical forms or shapes, they will use the optical illusion technique to accentuate that or to create that element. So as we saw in the towards the end of the presentation, I showed you the artistic intervention on the building, on the two adjacent faces of the building. So that's a one experiment that shows kind of it is not to accentuate some symmetry or some geometrical perfection, but it is used to create some interesting depths and volumes to the space. So it really depends on the type of project or type of building you are working on, and the other factors that I told you about. That is the viewpoint and what you exactly want to achieve by doing the optical illusion that you're creating. Whether you want to cater to the outside viewer, whether you want to solve some problem of making the plane surface a little better, and whether you want to accentuate some opening of a building. So in like this optical illusion technique can be used from various scales, like from the opening of a building to a large part of the building, and to accentuating the whole urban street and adding to certain character of it. So there are various applications at various scales, and I think it's quite unexplored till now. And hopefully, like, we can think about these small things in some spaces wherever possible, and it can be used in any form, any space, not only symmetrical forms. I hope that answers. So
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Ron, for the question. And I think since we are already over time, so I would like to conclude the webinar for now. So, yeah, Mehta sir, do you want to?
Yes, yes. Kamal, would you like to say something? No. Okay. I have something to say. One, the presentation was very joyful. I think Tintin fans would like it. You see, he used OPART very extensively. And what it reminds me of my school days at SPA, OPART was part of our course in the art. So we were taught. So it's great to recall childhood memories and the school memories at SPA. And I think it's a wonderful presentation you made, wonderful explanations you made. And I think we need to carry it forward. This is all I would think, Mirza and Tushar and Kamal sir, that if Mirza is ready, let's take it forward. Maybe a short-term course, 2 week, 1 week, whatever you feel, and let's propagate. Let's propagate this idea. It's worth it. And you see, let us not say art and architecture together. Architecture is art. So you do create visual impressions, and you make impact on how we perceive things, how we would look up to art, look up to science and technology. So this is a medium of expression. So here, art is of great value, and op art is actually what you need. That you need to create an impression. You need to make people have a particular perception of a particular space, of a surrounding. As you said, that every building has a surrounding, be it urban, be it natural, it would be something. Something is there. And how do you accentuate and make a statement with that? And that's our part. So I think a great scope to make an impact in the minds of thinkers, that we make a contribution of a very different kind. You can bring in peace with this, you can bring excitement with this, you can inspire people. You see, the way you do it, if you do it constantly, as you have shown in examples, you can actually make an impact exactly what you want. So let's go ahead. Tushar, remain connected with
Yes,
Mirza, and I think we should take it forward.
Yes, sir, definitely. I will take this forward with Fauzan, and we'll chalk up a plan for this.
yeah, I'll be more than
Okay.
happy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, yes, thank you, Fauzan. So with this, I would like to conclude today's webinar. I thank the academicians present here, and I also thank Fauzan for the talk. So before closing, I would like to inform everyone about the Every Friday webinar series being organized by the Periyar School of Architecture. The webinars are a platform for young professionals to express their ideas and is aimed at students and young architects. Further, we will also be running short-term courses in summer schools, and the information will soon be released for those things over our Telegram channel and as well as other media. So I would, with this, I would like to close the webinar. I thank everyone present, and please have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.